Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey, and subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, the Alabama Crimson Tide have hired former offensive coordinator of Notre Dame, Tommy Rees, to be their new offensive coordinator. And I'm going to go over Alabama's decision to hire Tommy Rees as their offensive coordinator and whether I think it was a good decision or not. Now, again, Tommy Rees was the former offensive coordinator of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and his tenure there at Notre Dame was a mixed bag. Some Notre Dame fans thought Tommy Rees did a good job as the Fighting Irish offensive coordinator, but other Notre Dame fans did not think so highly of Tommy Rees. Now, obviously, Tommy Rees does have a lot of history at Notre Dame. He was their quarterback from 2010 to 2013, but he became their quarterbacks coach from 2017 to 2019, and then he became their offensive coordinator from 2020 to 2022. And if you look at his results at his tenure of being a coach at Notre Dame, it wasn't all bad because he became the quarterbacks coach at Notre Dame in 2017, and Ian Book was the quarterback from 2017 through 2020. But in the 3 years that Tommy Rees was the quarterbacks coach, Ian Book did improve year after year, and he actually turned him into a really solid quarterback over time. And Ian Book improved year over year under Tommy Rees' watch, and he actually turned into a quarterback that was capable of winning a lot in college, and he's even made the NFL, even though he hasn't had an extensive NFL career. But then in 2020, he became the Notre Dame offensive coordinator, and Ian Book still had a really solid season in 2020. And Notre Dame's offense ranked 26th in the country in 2020. They were 58th in passing offense, 23rd in rushing offense, and 27th in points per game. Those numbers aren't elite, but they still were really solid. And again, Tommy Rees did have a lot of success with Ian Book, a quarterback that maybe wasn't an elite level talent, but he did make him a really capable quarterback. And then in 2021, Notre Dame brought in Jack Cohn from Wisconsin to be the new quarterback, and the numbers did take a step back. They were 45th on offense in 2021 for Notre Dame. They were 20th in the country in passing, 79th in the run that year, and 18th in points per game. So Notre Dame's offense did take a step back in 2021. But again, Jack Cohn was a solid quarterback, but he wasn't an elite level talent. But Tommy Rees did have Notre Dame's offense in the top 20 in the country in passing yards per game with Jack Cohn at quarterback. And then in 2022, Notre Dame had some quarterback issues when Tyler Buchner went down with injury, and then they had to go with Drew Pine. And Notre Dame's offense was 52nd on offense, 92nd in passing offense, 32nd in rushing offense, and 33rd in points. And Drew Pine was a quarterback when he had to fill in for Tyler Buchner. He's a decent quarterback, and he does have a lot of capability as a quarterback, but he's not an elite level talent as well. And I think that's the biggest issue going against Tommy Rees. And why a lot of people don't think Tommy Rees is a great offensive coordinator is because of the fact the numbers that Notre Dame put up when he was the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame are not elite. They never were like top 15 in the country in any stat. But again, Tommy Rees wasn't working with the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Drew Pine, Jack Cohn, and Ian Book are all solid quarterbacks, but none of them were first round draft pick level talents. And I think that that's a big key when talking about Tommy Rees. What can he do at Alabama? Will he be able to perform better as an offensive coordinator with much better talent? Because again, Tommy Rees actually did a capable job at Notre Dame with quarterbacks that were not as talented. And even though Notre Dame does have a lot of talent as a team, Notre Dame is still behind Alabama overall in talent on both sides of the ball. And I think that Tommy Rees did a solid job at Notre Dame. Obviously, I do see why some Notre Dame fans do not think that Tommy Rees was the best offensive coordinator. Sometimes his game plans could have been better on offense. I thought sometimes they did lean too much on the run. But yet again, maybe that was due to the fact that Tommy Rees was struggling to find his way with the quarterbacks that he had. But he was able to make it work, and he did do a really good job with Ian Book. He did struggle a bit with Drew Pine, but Drew Pine is not an elite level quarterback, and that's why he decided to enter the transfer portal. And Notre Dame's most likely going to have Sam Hartman or maybe Tyler Buchner at quarterback in 2023. Drew Pine was a solid quarterback, but he just wasn't an elite level talent. But again, for Alabama hiring Tommy Rees, I think this is going to come down to the fact that potentially they see a guy that's similar to the offensive coordinators Alabama's had in the past. He does have a similar offensive style to Bill O'Brien, and maybe Nick Saban believes that having Tommy Rees as offensive coordinator, that it will be a seamless transition and that they'll be able to run offense the same way as they've had. But some people complained about Bill O'Brien and said he wasn't the best. So I can see why some Alabama fans are really questioning Tommy Rees because of the numbers that he had at Notre Dame weren't the best, and a lot of Alabama fans didn't even like Bill O'Brien in the first place. But I do think that Tommy Rees deserves a shot because he did do a pretty good job at Notre Dame with what he had, especially at the quarterback position not being at an elite level. And Alabama has much more talent with which could definitely help out Tommy Rees be able to call plays and be able to get more out of the offense than he was able to at Notre Dame. Now, another interesting thing about Tommy Rees is he's only 30 years of age. So he's the youngest coordinator for a Nick Saban coach team since Will Muschamp at LSU for Nick Saban back in 2002. So it's really interesting that Nick Saban went with somebody that's so young. And Alabama did have a lot of other options for the offensive coordinator position. They could have gotten somebody from the NFL. And Alabama did interview with Washington offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, but for whatever reason, either it did not work out or Alabama just did not decide to hire him, because Ryan Grubb at Washington did have the highest passing yards per game with Michael Penix this past year. But maybe Alabama's wanting to go in a different direction as well, because they have been a passing team the last few years more than a rushing team, which is actually Alabama's identity for most of Nick Saban's tenure. I know in 2023 in college football, a lot of teams are throwing the football more than running the football. That's another perk that Alabama might have with Tommy Rees, is that at Notre Dame, he did run the football a lot. So maybe Nick Saban's looking at it that Tommy Rees can come to Alabama and be able to make the running game better. But for Alabama, it's going to be wait and see mode with Tommy Rees. This could be a really good hire or a really bad hire. It could either not work out with Tommy Rees not having the best numbers at Notre Dame and then him coming to Alabama, and even with the better talent at Alabama than Tommy Rees had at Notre Dame, he's still not performing at the level that he needs to as an offensive coordinator. Or it could work out and Tommy Rees will have more talent at Alabama than Notre Dame, and he'll be able to implement his system and make Alabama a much better rushing team than they've been the past few years and be able to pass the ball well with whoever quarterback Alabama decides to go with versus what Tommy Rees was able to do with the quarterbacks Notre Dame had. But even if it doesn't work out for Alabama, all they have to do is fire Tommy Rees. Alabama's not a program that's going to keep a coordinator that's not performing at a high level. So if Tommy Rees doesn't perform well, they can just fire him and get a new coordinator before anything really hurts Alabama in the long run. But for Alabama, I think hiring Tommy Rees is an interesting decision, especially when you had a lot of other coordinators that you could have gotten. But I do think that Tommy Rees, if he's able to use the talent that Alabama has and do a better job than he was able to do with what Notre Dame had, then I think that Tommy Rees could work out at Alabama. But if he's not able to do a better job than he did at Notre Dame, even with the better talent that Alabama has, then it could not work out. But we're definitely going to be in wait and see mode with Tommy Rees. But I will lean that this could possibly be a good decision for Alabama over a bad decision. But we're really just going to have to wait and see how Tommy Rees works out as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Alabama hiring Tommy Rees was a good decision or whether you think they should have hired a different offensive coordinator. And I will see you next time.